welcome back to Creating Hanley. I'm just being a little silly today. I am Kimberly at Creating Hanley, and happy Earth Day, everybody. So, for our quilt block, Sew Along, I am picking a pattern from this book, the Quilt Block Bible. So if you have this is the book from Rosemary Young's. You can go to this page. We are doing the Square and Tulips Star. Now, if you don't have the book, no worries. I'm going to show you how I created this. Now, I did not go online to find the directions because every time I try to do that, I can never find it. So, I don't know. I just bought a picture book. But all of the instructions for every one of these quilt blocks is supposedly online. And you can find the directions to do those. So, if you're lucky enough, do that. Otherwise, I just stared at this for a little while and it looks pretty simple. So I only used 2.5-inch squares, and that's all you're going to use. So if you have this or something similar to this, then all you need is a 2.5-inch square measuring unit device tool thingy. I am not sponsored by this book or OmniGrid or whatever tools that I'm using. So it's just all me. I paid for everything. There's nothing sponsored. Anyway, these are just the things that I have. Now, if you don't have this little 2.5-inch, no worries. You can use something bigger. You don't have to use an OmniGrid. Whatever you have works. And if you're a quilter, then you have something similar to this stuff. Even if you have, let me reach this. Even if you have something like this, this is 3 inches. So you will definitely get your 2.5-inch square out of here, right? So definitely that will work. So find something to measure and do that. Now my rotary cutter, the blade is a little bit dull. So use a fresh rotary cutter blade per project. It's been several projects since I've changed this blade, so it is getting a little bit dull. Also, you may need some fabric scissors, a pencil, and here's something nifty that I made out of a cracker box is this little window. So this is a 2-inch window, and this will give me an idea of if I fussy cut fabric, it'll show me how to align my cut so that this part shows and some of my feature picture doesn't get caught up in the seam allowance, if that makes any sense. So for example, if I want to fussy cut a cat's head, and I use this and I cut too much, too high or too low or something, if I don't check, maybe the ears will get cut off or some of the whiskers or something like that. So this is a nifty way if you are. So let me just show you. So here I have some bee fabric, right? And so say I look at this fabric and I'm like, there's so many different things that I could do with this. If I take my 2-inch window and I say, what looks the best? Can I do this little honey beehive? What does that look like in a 2-inch window? I don't know. It looks kind of weird. But maybe if I go over here, does this make sense? Oh, look at that. Both of the bees are showing in the square. So yes, I could do. Now, not all the words are, but the bees are. So perhaps that could work in a project. Maybe if I come down here and I want to do something like with these words. Well, this isn't going to fit into but this won't fit into a 2-inch square. So I kind of have to look. Well, maybe this will. This will fit into a 2-inch square. Or maybe if I come over to this bee, and it's right on the fold here, and I'm not going to be able to get the whole bee and the crown, so maybe I just bring this up and I just like highlight the crown and the head of the bee, right? Something like that. So this could be helpful too. And it's easy to make. I just use a cracker box side of that, and then you just draw your 2-inch square in there, and then you just take your paper scissors, not your fabric scissors, but you kind of like punch a hole in the middle and then do a diagonal, and then, you know, cut it out as best you can. I wouldn't use a rotary cutter. For the 2-inch, it's a little bit small, and you don't really want to slice into the corners. So try to keep it as precise as you can with paper scissors, okay? So, I digress. I did not want to talk about that, but I just did. Now, if you look at this pattern, all I did was use 2.5-inch squares. That's all I did. So if you have a charm pack, or if you have, you know, 2.5-inch strips, scraps, or even 2.5-inch blocks, you can do that. Now there's only 3 colors on this one, and I used 3 colors also, so you can do that. It doesn't take much for this block, but it is a lot of cutting, and so let's get into that. So this is what it looks like, okay? All right, now what you will need as far as fabric goes. For your flower part, you need 13. So this is the flower. They have it in brown. You need 13 2.5-inch squares. For the background, they have it in white. You need 16 2.5-inch squares. And for these highlights, I'm calling these highlight squares or the fussy cut because on here you can see their flowers. You only need 4 of those. You can see in the pink, you only need 4 2.5-inch squares. Okay, now, I am going to say a caveat. So these are half square triangles right here. There are 8 of those. If you wanted to make these squares 3 inches instead of 2.5, you won't have to cut 16 backgrounds, and you won't have to cut 13 flowers. In fact, you'll have to cut 4 less, I believe. You only have to cut 4 less, if that makes sense to you guys. Because what will happen, each square here, if you make it 2.5 inches, then you get, oh, I put them in my scrap pile already. You get waste. If you make these squares 3 inches, you get no waste, and you use those 2 blocks per petal. I'm going to call this a flower petal. So you use those 2 blocks per petal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're using only 2.5 inches, you have to cut all 8 in your flower color and 8 in your background color. If you're making 3 inches, cut 4 less of both of those colors. I hope that makes sense, okay? All right, and there you go. So, let's take you down to what I did right here. Fly over here. I chose yellow, and I also made my highlights in that bee fabric. My background is in a pale green. Now, I partly sewed these together, okay? So I made my petals. Now you can see this right here is one of these squares. And the green right here is one of those squares, okay? These are half square triangle. Oh, you can't even see that. Okay, so let's take you down to what I have done so far. Now, I have partially sewed this together already. So let's take a look. All right, so this is what I have done. These are the fabrics colors that I have chosen and the fabrics I have chosen. So I chose the yellow for my flower petals. and the middle cornerstone. I did fussy cut those bees, and this is how I fussy cut mine. And then I just chose a pale green for the background. So this is the pale green, and this is the yellow I chose. And then I just fussy cut my bees. Okay, so I figured this would be a nice project for Earth Day, right? Yeah. Okay. So you have 16 of these green 2.5 inch, or your background color, 16 of these 2.5 inch. You have 13 of these flower colors, and then you have 4 your highlight 2.5 inch. Okay, and here's what they look like semi put together. Now, to make one of these blocks, you have one solid flower petal color. You have one solid background color, like so. And then these two are your half square triangles, okay? So these two sides are your half square triangles. Now let me show you how to do that with these two. Now I'm just going to put right sides together, and I'm going to draw a line. Now, these are 2.5 inch squares. If you are using the 3 inch squares, you only have to, okay. The way you do this will be different. Let me show you the 2.5 inch first, and then I'll show you the 3 inch. Now, for the 2.5 inch, you are going to, here, let me move this out of the way so you can see this. Draw a line from corner to corner. Draw your line from corner to corner. That, in the 2.5 inch, is your sew line. Now, because I do not want to waste, so the second half is going to be waste, I'm going to draw a second line. This is a smaller half square triangle. And this is going into my crumb box because I'm not going to waste this fabric. If I pull this back, this is going to be a smaller triangle, as you can see. And it's not going to fit into our project, but it'll fit into a future crumb project, okay? Now, if you are using a 3 inch square, you will then draw another line a 1/4 inch on the other side, and this will be your sew line. This will be your sew line. This is your cut line, and now you have created 2 half square triangles from 1 square, and there is no waste, and they both go into this quilt block unit to make the flower petal. Okay? Does that make sense? If you are using a 2.5 inch square, you only have 2 lines. You're going to sew on that middle line, and then you don't have to use the other side. You don't have to make the second triangle if you want. That's waste. I never throw it away. I always save it. That's me. Okay? So, I'm going to show you how to make the 2.5 inch. I follow, I don't know if you can even see that. I follow the middle line. Actually, I'm not because I don't want to confuse you guys. Hopefully, I explained that well enough. If you are using the 3 inch, then both of these lines are your sew lines, and the middle is your cut line. If you're using 2.5 inch, you only have 2 sew lines. Yes, 2 sew lines. You sew on this line, you sew on the second line, you cut in the middle, you throw the other part in your crumb box, and you use the big part for your half square triangle. Now you have to do that 8 times. If you're using a 3 inch, you only have to do that 4 times. Do you see how that works? Okay. Now that you have made your petals, okay, they all look the same, you're going to arrange them this way so that the petal part, this is an hourglass, okay? So each petal is the same. you have your flower color, your background color, the corners match there, and then you have your hourglass this way with the half square triangles. Each petal is exactly the same. Now you're going to arrange them so that each petal corner goes into the center, like so. Very similar to what we did a couple months ago, or maybe last month, with our bear claw. Our bear paw, bear claw block of the month. Very similar to that. So this is not that much removed. It's not that much different. There's a little more working parts to this one. Okay, let's go back down. Now, you want to align your highlights at the outside corners, and that's going to separate your flower petals. The remaining odd flower petal color is going to go in the center. This is your center stone, or your center block, center square. Okay, now you have 4 of these and 4 of these. Now you take your, and the rest you fill in with your background color. Okay, so now you have the makings of your square and tulip block. Now I sewed 2 together at a time. So 2 together, I did 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, made those pairs, and then I sewed this block together, and I sewed this block together to make my petals. I did that 2, 2, 2, 2, okay? Sewed that like that. Now, once you have that, you can do a couple of things. You can sew these together, sew these together, sew these together, and now you can sew that to that, and then that to that. Or you can do it in columns instead of rows. Okay? You can sew these together, and these together. Okay? And then once you have that, then you sew those on there and those on there. All using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Does that help you guys? And that is how you make this square and tulip star for our Earth Day quilt block, sampler quilt block for our sample quilt. Okay? I hope that helps. I hope you have fun making that. Happy Earth Day to you. Pick whatever colors you like. It doesn't have to be like this. You don't even have to fussy cut. Whatever works for you guys. All right. Have fun. See you on the next episode. Bye for now.